Well, hello and welcome back to my tiny little corner of YouTube where we keep bumping into each other. How the devil are you? And today we're going to have a little bit of story time. A story that is very special to me. A story that is still to this day very empowering and still truly was the best day of my life. So let's get started. So, you've seen the thumbnail, you've seen the description. I don't need to build a suspense anymore. The most empowering day of my life. Now, I know that's kind of cliche. I know us mums all say that. We're all like, oh, it was the best day of my life, rah, rah, rah. But it really, truly was. Oliver's home birth truly was the best day of my life for so many reasons. It was so transformative and life-changing to me that it became the best day of my life. Of course, meeting Oliver for the first time was what was so special, but the whole labour was just beyond my wildest dreams. And it's something that I talk about still to this day, nearly 9 years on. I still tell anybody and everybody who would listen. So of course I wanted to share it with you guys. So let's get started. So basically what happened was it all started when I'd have been about 3 months pregnant and I started at pregnancy yoga. And the very first night we went, so it was about an hour and a half, I think, every week, say, every Monday, I can't remember, we'd go. It was about an hour and a half, and it was one of them things that you often was like, oh, don't really want to go tonight, it's cold, it's dark, don't really fancy it. But when you get there and you leave, it was like the best hour of the week, hour and a half of the week. It truly was. But the first session we went to, the very first night I went, what happened was you always had like at the beginning, like the talk about a topic, something, you know, pregnancy related or birth related, or they'd get in a previous member of the group if they'd had their babies to come in and tell their birth story. Well, my very first night, this lady came in and told her birth story, and it was a home birth story. And still now it gives me shivers down my spine thinking about this lady, because I think I would recognise her in the street. I never saw her again, never saw her before, never saw her afterwards, but I think I would recognise her in the street if I did see her. And I think it was her third child, but she had this tiny brand new baby that was days old, and she delivered it at home. And the way she spoke about her birth completely transformed everything I ever knew about labour and giving birth to children. Completely different. The way she spoke was so inspiring and so interesting to me that I had to know more about it. I had to learn. I had to find out if that was ever going to be a possibility for me. And it was truly beautiful. Like, it truly was beautiful. And if I can offer that to anybody who maybe be considering a home birth or never even heard of a home birth and how it works, then if I could offer that gift to one person, that would literally make my whole entire life, because this lady doesn't even know what she did in that one session for me. And maybe some of the other women in the group, to be honest, I'm not certain, but she was just so calm. She was so, I don't know, she just had this energy and this aura that I was like, wow, that is like unreal. All my other experiences before, I think I was 30 when I had Oliver. And I think through my 20s, I was kind of terrified to have a child, generally just raise a human, and just because of the fear of like failure and not doing a good job, but also the birth. We were back in the day when there was a lot of one born every minute, wasn't there? Every Wednesday, 9 o'clock, one born every minute. And although there were lots of lovely stories, it was of course set in a hospital. It was of course very much medical, and it looked terrifying to me. And I know this isn't possible for everybody, and medical reasons, not everybody can have a home birth, but I'm just telling you my story and how empowering it was for me. So from that first yoga session, I went every week. I met a brilliant group of women. Like, I learned so much from them. They were all very inspiring, all looking at things very alternatively. Every week there was a new topic that would come up, and I'd go home and have to Google it and research it, because I just didn't have a clue. I was absolutely clueless to the whole thing. And one of them topics, there was many, trust me, there was many things I was going on and Googling and massaging and learning about some weird and wonderful things that nobody teaches you. And I think as well, just while touching on what people, when you're pregnant, people, for some reason, want to tell you the most horrific stories, want to tell you all about how terrible their births were. It becomes this like normalized subject of like, it's just guaranteed, it's a dead cert that your birth is going to be horrific. Just suck it up, buttercup, that's how it is. That type of attitude. I was jumping in feet first, not really knowing the outcome because I'd never heard of anybody have a baby at home or want to. I think my sister may have wanted to. I don't really know why she didn't. But my sister also really wanted me to be at her children's births, and I said no every single time. She has 3 children. I just couldn't. It really frightened me, I think, if I'm being honest. It was the fear of just being so out of control and the pain, and I was really frightened. I didn't want to see my sister go through that. I don't know. I wouldn't have gone to anybody's. It wasn't a personal thing to my sister. I just didn't want to be at anybody's. Just everything about it was really frightening to me. Just going back to what I was going to tell you was I also learned about something called hypnobirthing. And it was one of them nights that I was like, right, what the bloody hell is hypnobirthing? No idea what this is, never heard of it, never seen it. Like, what is this witchcraft? And I went home and I learned about it a lot for the next 6 months or whatever it was. I read books about it. Of course, I was reading books back then as well. I cannot remember any of the books I read, so this is probably going to be the first video I'm not going to recommend any books. You know, what is it? Like my books on my phone. Hold on, let me do it right now. Let's see. Have I got any? Oh, 3 in a Bed and The Heart Womb. I don't think I finished either of them. So I'm not 100% certain. The 3 in a Bed is obviously about co-sleeping. That would be a whole nother topic. That would be a whole nother topic because that book's probably something I would still read to this day and he's nearly 9. Anyway, so back to the home birth. Yeah, I just learned about hypnobirthing. And if you don't know what hypnobirthing is, it's about breath work, it's about mindset, it's about everything that I love still to this day. And I think this was my real introduction to this stuff and the power of the mind, because it was the words, it was the language that they used. It was all, and I was all completely self-taught. I didn't go to any classes, hypnobirthing classes. I think there was some great hypnobirthing classes. It was all very much just, I think it was like, because this was 9 years ago, so podcasts didn't seem to, I don't remember them being very popular. I mean, they were probably a thing, but I didn't listen to podcasts. I don't even think I went on YouTube to watch stories, but I think there probably was lots of good resources, but I just didn't do that. The things that I was doing was books, going onto people's blogs and reading all about it. And it was, like I said, it was all about the language. Like even like the contractions, they didn't call it contractions, they called them waves. They didn't call like, it was very much just recoding the brain of everything that we thought was going to happen and be painful, or whatever we're conditioned to believe was going to be the case. It was completely recoding that and changing my mindset around it. And I stopped watching One Born Every Minute. I was still watching Call the Midwives. I was still watching Call the Midwives because I feel like they were doing it at home, they were birthing at home. So there was still some things that felt like safe for me to watch, but everything else, I shut down anybody's negative stories. I didn't want to hear it. I was seeking out all the positive home birth, natural, or pools or anything like that. That was like where I needed to go. I had to keep my head in the game. And there was even family members that were not massively keen on me doing it, because I think it is scary for some people. I think it was very much like, well, what if some things matter and you need the hospital? I was like, well, I'm an ambulance away. Like, I would just get in the ambulance. Like, you can't live your life worrying if you're going to get hit by a bus. Yeah, there's a chance you might get hit by a bus, but you can't worry about it. Now, don't get me wrong. There was not at any point did I put me or Oliver in any danger. I was very lucky that all the way through my pregnancy, I was also very lucky actually that I did have, all was coming up small. He was measuring small. I don't know why, but from the outside, they kept thinking he was small, which was fantastic because that meant, and again, this came from a friend actually, Caroline. She was one of the mums that I met at yoga. And I remember her saying to me, oh, how lucky that you keep going to get more scans. I think I had about 5 or 6 scans. And I think you only get 2, don't you? You get like 1 really early on and then 1 late on. And I was like, it's all about the reframing. And she was so good at that when it came to birth. She was a natural. She was very wise. She was a very wise woman, actually. Yeah, and I always remember saying that. I was like, yeah, you're right. Because I was still in that mindset, oh, like, what a chore. Like, what a chore. I have to keep going back to the hospital and having a scan. And she was like, how lucky that you keep getting to see your baby. And I was like, yeah, how lucky am I that I've got 6 scan photos of Oliver. Most people don't get that. So again, just brilliant. But other than that, everything was pretty normal. My pregnancy was pretty normal. And then as it came to it, everything was going smoothly. So nobody was at risk at all at any point. It wasn't like I'm having a home birth and that's it. If I'd had to go into hospital, I would have gone into hospital. 100%, of course I would have done. I wasn't letting myself think about them things. I was just like, this is what it's going to be for me. This is my norm. This is my reality. And he was due on the 1st of July. And come the 4th of July, I woke up at 6 a.m. just before Chris's alarm went off at 6. And I was just up before him, which is a rare occurrence. So he should have red flagged me there and then, really. And I thought, ooh, something's happening here. But I didn't know if it was Braxton Hicks, contractions. I didn't know that because I'd never had a child before. I thought, okay, I remember somebody saying, if you can walk them off, then it's Braxton Hicks. Otherwise, it's the contractions. So I got up and I thought, oh no, I think this is definitely it. And they were coming every 10 minutes. I didn't tell Chris. It was very, very manageable at this stage. I didn't tell Chris. I just said to him, I think, going to work, babe, like you might, get everything sorted that you need to, because it's not going to be long. He's going to be coming soon. He's going to be coming next few days. Make sure you get ready so you can have your 2 weeks off. And he went off to work. I then went into like a little bit of nesting mode. I like tidied the living room, hoovered. I even think I did some ironing. It just kept coming every 10 minutes. And like I said, it was still very manageable. And I was practicing my breathing. So everything I'd learned in yoga, all my breathing techniques, I was practicing then. So every time they came, I just practiced my breathing, breathe through it. And it was like a wave. It just came up and it went back down. And also my friend Caroline, I remember her saying she'd had her baby just before me. And she said, it's only a minute. Contractions are only about a minute. You can do anything for a minute. And her little voice went through every single contractions for 26 hours. I can do anything for a minute. I can do anything for a minute. It was a different sensation, don't get me wrong. Like, it was a sensation I'd never had, but it wasn't pain. It wasn't like, I didn't want to scream or anything like that. And then come 10 o'clock, 10 a.m., after I'd had a few hours on my own, I think I text Chris to say, yeah, I'm definitely having contractions, think about getting home type of thing. And my mum texts as well to say, are you okay? And I said, oh, do you want to come for a coffee? And she said, oh yeah, Claire's here as well, my sister. And I said, oh yeah, both come. And when they got here, I didn't tell them I was having contractions. When they got here, I think they had a coffee or whatever. And then they were like, my sister just looked at my mum and went, she's having contractions, isn't she? And mum was like, yeah, she's having contractions. And I was like, oh yeah, I've been having them since 6. I just didn't want to say anything. I was just like playing it very cool. And they were like, okay, like this is what we're doing. Every time I had contractions, I couldn't sit down. I had to stand up. I was like leaning over the kitchen counter or leaning up against the wall. All techniques that I'd learned in yoga or again, the hypnobirthing, all thinking about the best thing that I needed for my body and just not really doing anything that didn't feel comfortable and natural to me. Just moving back to my sister and my mum, this was also one of the big selling points for me to have a home birth. Is it meant I could have my sister, because all along I obviously thought Chris would be there and I thought I would want my mum there, but I wanted my sister there, and I knew she would be there in a heartbeat, because like I mentioned, she wanted me to be at all her births. And I was just too much of a pussy to turn up. But I knew she'd be like front of the queue for that ticket, 100%. And let me tell you, she had front row seats. She had a VIP, front row, queue jump, you name it. She had the best of the best. But yeah, so it meant a lot that having a home birth meant I could have all 3 of them here in the home, not have to worry. If I was in a hospital, I would, I think, been able to have my mum and Chris, but I wouldn't have been able to have my sister as a third. So that was a massive selling point for me to have like everybody around me. And I'm talking about, I have mentioned this, but obviously this was 9 years ago, so or coming up 9 years ago. I don't have a clue how it happens here now. I don't have no idea how it's happening now. I did all this through the NHS. I don't know how possible it is in your area or just generally now in the communities how midwives are running it. So I hope other people have this opportunities, but I do appreciate I was so freaking lucky, like divine timing. It was pre-COVID. I know that messed up a lot of things. It was just meant to be. It was literally meant to be. 100%. You cannot tell me it was not meant to be. Yeah, my mum and sister came, then Chris came back from work, and I think then at like 1 o'clock, so maybe like 7 hours on from the start of my contractions, we rang the midwife, and she just said, well, you seem to be, you know, fine. You seem to be coping well at home, you know, stay put for now, nothing's happening, which would have been very normal anyway. They wouldn't have rushed me into hospital even if I was having, it was my first child. So they would it was very, very, I think I was very textbook, I'm not gonna lie. Then I think it got to like 9 o'clock at night. And also, talking about food, I was very on it with my food. I had breakfast, I think I had like Weetabix for breakfast. I feel like I had a jacket potato or something for lunch. And then I had a pizza for tea. I didn't eat much of these things, by the way, but this was all during like labour. So I was eating well. I knew it was going to be a long time. I knew I needed my energy. I just made sure I looked after myself. I think I drank a lot of water. And I also had jelly babies that my friend said, you'll need that for the sugar. And I kept eating them later on. They were like just any type, like just a bit of a sugar rush to just keep my energy going, really. So, I mean, my food was on point. I was having the time of my life. We then ran the midwife again at about 9 and just said, I think I'm ready now. You know, we'd had tea, I had a shower. I hated it in the shower, actually. I didn't like it. I know a lot of people, they love their water births. I know a lot of people love their water births, but I had no interest in it. I don't know why. And I love the bath and I love water. But for some reason, I didn't want to birth in the bath. I have no idea why. So I didn't have a pool. I didn't have anything. Literally just had the living room. So yeah, after having the shower, which just made me like, I didn't like it. My contractions were too strong. I couldn't control my, I don't know if it was because I was stood, I don't know. Just didn't like it. So it was a quick shower into clean pajamas. And then I just said to the midwife, like, I'm ready for somebody to come and like, just check me over type of thing. So the community midwife knew I'd started. So they were prepared for me to come in. So the first midwife came, she checked me over. I think I was like 6 centimetres dilated, and she said, do you want a stretch and sweep where I'm kind of in here? And I was like, yeah, why not? So she did that, and that did move things along, but not quickly, just everything then felt probably more intense for me. Then I think by midnight, the second midwife came, because the first midwife comes to you and then the second midwife went off to get the gas and air and anything else that they needed, any emergency equipment from the hospital, and then they came over. So, and she asked at that point if I was comfortable with having a student midwife, and I was like, hell yeah, the more the merrier. 3 midwives and 3 family. So it was kind of a full house, I guess. Although the house was different to where it was now. I don't know if I mentioned it, but it was literally here. I literally birthed him right here, which is why I'm sat right here. I think I missed that at the beginning, but the living room was slightly different. Well, the house was different. We hadn't done the extension, but that was still the dining room. So the midwives just sat on a table there and we were in the living room. So it wasn't overcrowded or anything. I then just leant over the sofa for hours and hours. Again, just doing I had no gas and air, no paracetamol, absolutely no medication at all. It was all from the power of my breath. There was no, any type of like intense noise came out of me. It was just my breath work. Every time the contractions came, I was breathing behind my baby and releasing, and now it was just over in my head. I can do anything for a minute. It's all steps to meet my baby boy. Like, it was just, it was magical. Honestly, it was just the best thing ever. I think I impressed my family. I mean, obviously my mum had had children before. She'd been at my sister's births. My sister had had her own children. Chris had been at his 2 elder boys' birth, so he, you know, it was old hat to these. Like these guys had seen it all before, and even the midwives. But I think the way I managed to control my breath and just control my body it impressed people, I think. It impressed me anyway. I impressed myself 100%. That I could be... The problem before and the fear was very much, I didn't like the thought of being out of control and the thought of not, I don't know, just like being completely out of body experience. And none of that happened. Like, I knew everything that happened because I'd had no medication. There was nothing, I knew everything that went on. And it was just amazing. Every contraction was like, this is just bringing me closer to meeting him. Like, it's just closer. And from start to finish, it was 25 hours. Nearly 26, but it was, I needed that because I needed the build-up of the contractions for me to be in control of it. If it had just come and the contractions had been so intense, I wouldn't have been able to manage that and control that. So even the length, which some people may sound like, oh my God, 26 hours, that sounds terrible. It was perfect. It was what I needed to get me to where I needed to be. Yeah, it was just absolutely magical to have my family obviously with me as well, and obviously Chris, but I feel like Chris was like kind of a dead cert, he's got to be here, but to have my mum and sister with me was just like absolutely winning the lottery. Then I started to like, things started to like intensify, and I can't quite remember what time like he started to crown, but I do remember the first, like, and again, it was no pushing, there was none of that. It was like, again, I'd seen on One Bon every minute, push. I didn't have the power to push. It was like my body knew exactly what it was doing. Like, and again, it was just like it was like a release type of thing. But I wasn't like in control. My body was doing everything for me. Like, it knew exactly what to do. Like, my mind wasn't taking over, like push. It just knew. I guess like going to the toilet, it just comes out, doesn't it? It was the same thing. It just knew exactly what to do. But there was a very much when he did crown, I thought, I'm not sure that's going to fit. I have a problem here. And then a few more contractions later, obviously he did fit perfectly, which was just wonderful. I did have to have medication to deliver the placenta. That didn't come out as easy as Oliver. Oliver was like absolute pro. And even the midwives, every time they checked Oliver, they're like, oh, his heart rate's great. And because I think I was so in control of my breath, he was getting all the oxygen he needed. So he was super cool, calm and collected throughout the whole process. And there was no, like, he wasn't panicked. He was like, yeah, we're doing this, Mum. We've got this. We don't need any intervention here. We're going to do this. But the placenta didn't play ball. No, he didn't get that memo. Whole different story. Didn't want to come out. So I did have to get medicated for that. I found that quite horrific and it made me feel quite shitty. But maybe because, again, I'd had no medication. So I didn't get a hit of that. But I also kind of had a feeling that was going to happen. So I'd kind of planned for that as well, whereby I'd already said to my mum, you come with me in the ambulance and Chris and Claire will go with Oliver in the car. So it was okay. It was what it was. It'd be nice if I didn't have to go in and do them things, but we was quickly back home and back to our little safe space with our gorgeous little boy. I mean, I could talk about this. I've tried to like be as quick as I can with this because there's so much to it. But I think the big takeaways from me is I'm still very proud of myself that I could do that in such a calm way, and a way that did feel out of the norm. I actually did inspire some friends afterwards as well. I had 2 friends that wanted to, and did successfully have home births actually from my story, because I think I was kind of a little bit of a unicorn the way I speak about my birth, because it really was like the best thing ever. And if everybody could experience that, then I would bottle that and sell it for sure, because it was just, I was very proud of myself. I was proud of how much preparation I'd put in beforehand and prepared myself. We listened to Hypnobirthing throughout. Me and Chris were listening to Hypnobirthing every single night leading up to it. So that made me feel very calm. And the way I could stay in control of my body, my mind, and achieve something that just felt so right and so natural. I think why I often think about it now is like, I revert back to that day all of the time. Like, if there's anything difficult, if I'm doing a workout and I'm like, yeah, if I'm struggling to do a plank and I'm like, Christ almighty, I can give birth at home naturally for 26 hours. I can sit in plank for a little bit. Like, it's not that difficult. So yeah, I think the biggest takeaway is like, not everybody has to have a home birth to realise the power of the mind and the power of like intention and, you know, really putting your mind to something and achieving it. We don't all have to do that. We don't all have to have a child on the living room floor. However, this story may inspire you to put your mind towards something. If it does, please let me know. Or if somebody else has had a home birth, please let me know your story. I know it's not for everybody. It's not possible for everybody for numerous reasons, but I do encourage anybody who's maybe not had a child, who's maybe going to have a child, to look up hypnobirthing, do a little bit of research, look a little bit outside of the box, and just, for, you know, whatever feels good to you, go with that. And I think as well, it's a life lesson, isn't it? Like, you don't always have to do everything how we're kind of taught to do everything or how everybody else is doing everything. Sometimes when we do step outside of our comfort zone and do something slightly different, it's actually transformative, like life-changing stuff. It's kind of, I guess it's the saying, isn't it? It's when you step out your comfort zone, it's where the magic happens. That is not the saying at all, but it should be. It truly should be the saying. So yes, thank you for listening to my story. I hope you've enjoyed. I did try to keep it as brief as possible, but I did find that quite difficult, I'm not going to lie. If anybody else has had a home birth or is planning to have a home birth, please let me know. I'd love to hear all about it. Like I said, I could really talk about home birth for a very long time. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.